They are committed to bring all the good teachers. They are planning for it. They are strategically planning. See, crash course is done by many institutions, but strategical planning of crash course so that you can qualify the examination. That is important. There are many institutions who are going for test series, but there are certain things which are a fashion. There are certain things which are programmed, and whenever you join a program which is programmed with certain target, okay, this thing I have to develop in you within next 3 months, then you get success. ICRA's test series and this crash course of February, I tell you, it has been scientifically planned, especially for those people who have appeared for 3-4 attempts and they have not qualified. And I tell you, okay, this registration will start from the month of February, but crash course will start in April. Ultimately designed, sir, ultimately, just go through it. Ultimately designed crash course. So hope you all will see, it is a message to all the new people also. Okay, job, very good job, that too government job, but why only running behind jobs? You should be well educated, you should be a competitive mind. And one more thing, everyone in this country should prepare for civil services. Everyone, whether you want to become an IAS officer or not, but everyone in this country should prepare for civil services once in their life. ICRA will be a good option. Anywhere you can join, it's your choice. After all, it's your money. But everyone should prepare for IAS once. It changes your perspective, it changes your knowledge level. And when you are preparing, give one attempt. Because when you will qualify and resign like Subhash Chandra Bose, you will have more status in the country.
I have a question from the side of one of the students named Anurag Singh, though he is not right now in this session. So he has sent his question through textual message. The question is, it's the duty of the majority to instill confidence in the minority. Conversely, the minority must also look beyond the narrow sectarian interest and work for the larger goal of a real secular society in India. Evaluate in the light of the spirit of Indian Constitution and the Indian experience. Okay, see, this particular question needs an answer comprising of 3 different parts. Fine. First of all, you need to explain, the spirit of Indian Constitution. I mean, the values of Indian Constitution. And for the sake of having an explanation over the values of Indian Constitution, you need to give your utmost emphasis upon the issues concerning the constitutionalism. And in due course of having a reference of constitutionalism or constitutional values instilled under Indian Constitution, I am suggesting you to have a greater impetus upon the value related to secularism. Okay, so in brief, you need to define constitutionalism. And within the ambit of constitutionalism, the greater impetus needs to be given upon secularism. Okay. After explaining secularism, now you need to refer, the issues concerning 4 constitutional provisions. 4 constitutional provisions, 2 related to right to religious freedom, and under right to religious freedom, you need to quote Article 26, Article 27, and then you can directly have a shift upon cultural and educational rights given under Article 29 and 30. Okay. Why Article 27 needs to be discussed here, needs to be explained here? Because it's Article 27 only which gives us about the real clue over secularism. And whatever the real clue of secular fabric of Indian Constitution is given under Article 27, that is simply being reflected via means of preamble to the Constitution of India by inducting, the term secularism under preamble via means of 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. So this is how you need to formulate or chalk out the background of your answer. After that, just having a direct shift upon cultural and educational rights, you need to explain Article 29, which makes the provision that Article 29 simply explains about, the cultural and educational rights concerning the minority classes. Okay, minority classes. It's basically the heading of Article 29, which tells us about the protection of interest of minority classes. But in actuality, when you refer the text of Article 29, you will certainly get to know that Article 29 by no way providing the cultural and educational rights only to minority classes, but it provides such rights to all, minority and majority, all. So Constitution of India, Constitution of India in its spirit does not make any sort of discrimination concerning the majority or minority. For the Constitution of India, majority and minority both are on equal lines. Anyway, but out of the different sectarian interest, see, so many sectarian interests are there. Sectarian interest, you can say, the issues concerning the prejudices in a different classes of society, the issues concerning sense of fear psychosis, sense of fairness, you can say the issues concerning the sense of aloofness in the society, they all constitute, or you can say they all compel the minority classes to opt for sectarian issues. And based on sectarian issues, the politics of our country, it simply gets diluted, and communal elements can easily be instilled in the political system, and accordingly, in retaliation to minorities' interest, majority run communalism may be increased in the country. So you really want to get our country united, to consolidate the unity and integrity of the nation. It's not only the responsibility of the majority to provide, or to instill a sense of protection in the mind of minorities, a sense of defense in the mind of minorities. Rather, minorities also required of, to show such kinds of attitudes, via means of that the majority cannot think that they are trying to, you can say, sail their own boat. They are not trying to sail their own boat. Okay. So here simply the issues concerning vote banks, vote banks in politics, they usually ignite the sectarian issues. And because of those vote bank related issues or narrow political issues, minority classes usually get afraid, and for the sense of, instilling the sense of protection in themselves, they try to follow some narrow norms related to their own religion, means showing unity on the ground of their own religion, trying to show some sort of distinct behavior on the ground of religion in society, and they all ultimately increases, you can say, the sense of separatism. So to avoid the sense of separatism in society, to develop the environment of unity and integrity, it is obvious kind of thing that minorities should also take a responsibility, and that responsibility could be performed in a manner like they should not show any ground of aloofness. That's it. So this is how you can respond. Okay, second question. Yes, Priti is asking how the unitary type of federalism. Priti, first of all, you need to rectify your question. It's not unitary type of federalism. It's basically union type of federalism. Anyway, by rectifying it, I'm trying to quote your question. How the unitary type of federalism structure in India is different from quasi-federal structure. As in both the cases, more powers are tilted to the central government. Very nice question. See, here it's not the unitary type of federalism. It's basically union type of federalism. Union type of federalism. See, under union type of federalism, remember, we always take a note of two distinct kinds of constitutional provisions. One, unitary provisions, other federal provisions. Here, unitary provisions means those provisions which are directly handled by central authority. Means on the line of unitary provisions, states are not going to be provided with any kind of power. Or in simplest possible term, you can say, on the line of unitary provisions of Indian Constitution, we are not going to observe any sort of division of power that is taking place between center and states. When it comes to federal provisions are such provisions which which ensure a kind of division of power between the two participating authorities, one the central authority, other the state authorities. Okay. Now the question is, since Indian Constitution is having both the kinds of constitutional provisions, namely unitary and federal, that's why can it not be termed as a quasi-federal constitution? Because in quasi-federal constitution too, similar things are observed. For example, listen me again. Suppose, let us consider that it's not a marker, it's a kind of constitution. It's a kind of another constitution. Okay, this constitution contains federal and unitary, both the kinds of provisions, right? This constitution does also contain both the kinds of provisions, namely federal and unitary. Now the question is, if a constitution is having federal as well as, okay, I would have to look there, fine. If a constitution contains federal and unitary provisions, here you need to have a look into what's the mode of containment of these two different kinds of constitutional provisions, right? For example, suppose a constitution is having unitary as well as federal, both the kinds of provisions, but unitary and federal provisions, they are not being considered as two different parts of a single constitutional scheme. Then you will call it as, yes, it's a quasi-federal constitution. Means under quasi-federal constitution, federal features and unitary features, they are considered as distinct of each other, distinct of one another. But whenever it comes to union type federalism, listen me, up to a greater extent, a union type federalism and quasi-federalism both run parallel to each other. But the point is, if in a constitution, federal features and unitary features, they are being considered as the integral part of each other. Means from constitution, if you eliminate unitary provisions, federal provisions become meaningless. If you eliminate federal provisions, unitary provisions become meaningless. If such things are happening in a constitution, okay, such things are happening in a constitution corresponding to two different varieties of constitutional provisions, one unitary and other federal, then that would be referred to as union type federal structure. Union type federal structure. See, for example, I'm going to quote Schedule 7. You all might be knowing it well, that Schedule 7 of Indian Constitution makes the provision for division of what? Legislative powers between central authority and state authority, right? Division of legislative powers between central and state authorities via means of three different lists: union list, state list, and concurrent list, right? See, don't you think concurrent list contains certain items on which the union and state both can make legislation? Both can make legislation, means both are sharing legislative powers with each other, center and state. But the point is, don't you think the greater degree of powers are conferred on the side of center? So here, no doubt, the power sharing would be ultimately tilting towards the center. But whatever the surplus power you observe that is assigned in favor of center, it simply paves the way towards evolution of unitary features. Unitary features means those features on which state has no role to play. Okay. Those features on which only central authority can take decision, they are to be termed as unitary features. But it does not mean that unitary features are entirely different of federal features. Don't you think federalism is followed up to a greater extent? Up to a greater extent means center and state both can make legislation over concurrent list. But even on the powers to be enjoyed by both center and state for the sake of making legislation, one can easily observe that center is enjoying greater power. So this power gap and the residue of power gap being provided in favor of center, it shows the unitary behavior. And up to the extent the provision is related to division of power, it shows the federal behavior. So federal behavior and unitary behavior, if both are considered to be the two facets of a single dimension, you can say, then they are going to formulate a union type federal structure. In quasi-federal structure, federal features and unitary features, they are taken separately. They cannot be termed as an integral part of each other. From Indian Constitution, you cannot completely eliminate unitary features from federal features. But where if it used to be a quasi-federal constitution, you can easily eliminate unitary provisions from the federal ones. This is the reason. In due course of providing you the lecture based on this topic, I could have given an example in the form of how to make differences between homogeneous composition and heterogeneous composition. Union type federalism is just like, a homogeneous mixture. For example, suppose two components are there, water and sugar. If they are mixed together, no visible boundary can be observed in that solution. But if you go on to make a solution of water and sand, you can easily observe a boundary of separation. Wherever you observe a boundary of separation out of the amalgamation of federal and unitary features, that would be called as quasi-federal. If no such boundary of separation can be observed out of the federal and unitary features amalgamation, that would be referred to as union type federalism. Hopefully you have got my point. Shall I speak? Yes. There is a question sent from the side of Mr. Sarvesh. Yes, Sarvesh, how are you? The question is, if there is a provision or law which have 10% violative part and 90% non-violative part, but both are interdependent on each other, how doctrine of severability serves to this? If both are interdependent. Interdependent means if both are the part of same constitutional scheme, if both are the part of same scheme. Don't you think whenever any sort of legislation is to be made, each and every kind of legislation is based upon a particular scheme? Okay, for example, suppose two parts are there, two parts of a law are there, and both the parts of law are targeted towards a single constitutional scheme. But the point is, the substantive part of law is having the consonance with the fundamental rights, because doctrine of severability is applied in case of the relationship between law and fundamental rights. So if greater chunk of law is having consonance with the fundamental right, but very few portion of law is having non-consonance with the fundamental rights. See, here there are two possibilities behind the judiciary. If the meager part of law, which is having inconsistency with the fundamental right, is based on the same constitutional scheme to which the greater part of law is having its bearings. Suppose the greater part of law is having its connectivity with a particular constitutional scheme, and the remaining part of law, means the meager part of law, is also having the consonance with that particular constitutional scheme, provided it is violating the fundamental rights. In that situation, the judiciary will simply sever the meager portion of law away from the main law. But if it is noticed by the judiciary that the meager portion of law and main portion of law both are related to same constitutional scheme, it means it is going to show some sort of contradiction. Greater part of law is having bearings upon a particular constitutional scheme. Meager part of law is also having same type of bearings, and at the same time, that meager part is violative of fundamental rights. In that situation, entire law would be scrapped. But if it is found that the meager part of law is not related to similar kind of constitutional scheme which has been demonstrated by the substantive portion of law, in that situation, you can say only meager portion of law would be removed. And this is how the doctrine of severability can be employed. Which caste coming under EWS reservation? I have seen both backward class and EWS have same annual income. Only those castes which are from forward classes. For example, suppose those classes of people or those castes which have not been earlier provided or catered under any kind of reservational scheme. For example, suppose Suppose Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Kayasthas, don't you think earlier they have not been provided any kind of reservation under India's reservational scheme? So now they would be treated as, forward class for providing EWS reservation, 10% reservation. Okay, which constitution part? Okay, which part of constitution and article provides quality of life? You can refer it from both the parts, fundamental rights as well as DPSPs. When it comes to fundamental rights, you need to refer Article 21, Article 19, and of course Article 14 as well. Why? Because Article 21 is having greater connectivity with 19 and 14. Now let's have a shift into fourth part. If you refer fourth part, again you will find the entire constitutional provisions given under fourth part on the name of directive principles of state and policy, they are by and large related to provide you, a kind of qualitative life. Suppose you have been provided with social justice. Suppose you have been provided with, economic justice under Indian state. Don't you think by having a benefit out of social justice and economic justice, you can ensure the betterment of your life? दोनों part होगा जी, दोनों, fourth and third. हाँ. Doctrine of separability and doctrine of severability, Ankit, both are the same thing. Both are the same thing. Do you wanted me to explain it again? I have just explained it. फिर से explain कर दूं. So India is a federal state or quasi federal state. Oh my God, अभी भी confusion है. India is a damn federal state. We are having union kind of federalism. And this is explicitly mentioned under Article 1 in Part 1 of Indian Constitution. If you refer the text of Article 1, it is openly given that India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. Union of states is a kind of federal structure. Federal structure may be seen in three different forms. One, the union kind of federalism. Second, the federation, and third one is the confederation. Union, federation and confederation. इसको मैं बड़ा विस्तार से explain किया था. हाँ. Yes, Nitin, very good afternoon to you too. When will which rights shall be given preference from right to information versus right to privacy? Actually, I have not got your question. Which rights shall be given preference from? Are you asking either right to information be given preference or right to privacy? It's a dramatic question. It's a dramatic question. Right to information is a kind of right which can be derived out of the constitutional provision, Article 19, Class 1, Subclass A. Okay, and right to privacy is an integral part of, you can say, Article 21. But still, the Parliament of India has not made any distinct constitutional provision concerning right to privacy. But you all might be knowing it well that you can say right to information has been made an integral part of Article 19, Class 1, Subclass A. So it's difficult to say which constitutional provision shall be given prevalence over other, because Article 19 and Article 21, these two are basically the part of basic structure of the Constitution. 14, 19 and 21, whatever the balance we observe out of these three constitutional provisions, they constitute the basic structure of our Constitution. So we can't say in objective sense that whether right to information be given a preference over the right to privacy or right to privacy be given a preference over right to information. See, right to privacy is having its flow from Article 19. Sorry, right to information. I'm sorry. Right to information is having a flow from right to freedom of speech and expression given under Article 19, Class 1, Subclass A. While right to privacy is having a bearings upon right to life and personal liberty given under Article 21. And out of knowing all such things, suppose फिर भी आप ये जानना चाहते हैं कि मेरी नजर में किसको प्रेफरेंस दिया जाएगा, है ना? तो of course you can say it's right to privacy. Right to privacy. Why? Because Article 21 is the fundamental of all the fundamental rights. And right to privacy is not having its connection with Article 21 only, but it is also having its connection with Article 19. So certainly, if this issue is brought before Honorable Supreme Court of India, as I can guess, right to privacy be given prevalence over right to information. Anything else? Does Indian president is robot of Council of Minister, or he really vested with power? See, in parliamentary form of government, whenever it comes to recognize the authority or powers to be enjoyed by head of state, that is always, you can say he enjoys nominal powers, no substantive powers are vested in head of state. But it depends upon the mode of askance. If the question is asked, can you prove that the head of Indian state, that is the president of India, is a constitutional head of state? So when you go on to prove the president of India as the constitutional head of state, in that situation, you need to ensure that yes, he is also having some powers, no matter on the name of discretion only, but still he has some powers. So it would be inappropriate to say that on power basis, the president of India is a mere robot of Council of Ministers. You are suggested not to show this viewpoint. Rather, I am suggesting you to show that yes, he does not enjoy de facto powers, but in certain miscellaneous circumstances, of course, he is having some authorities, some substantive power. Yes. Yes, Hardeep. You wanted to ask something? I didn't get. In Government of India Act of 1990, the concept of diarchy for the provisions, no Hardik, it's provinces. Yes, for provinces, and in also Government of India 1930 diarchy for central level. So please explain this in Hindi language. Okay. तो आप डायरकी जानना चाहते हैं कि 1919 के भारत शासन अधिनियम में डायरकी, इन हिंदी इट इज कॉल्ड द्वैध शासन. तो देखो 1919 का जो मॉन्टेगू चेम्सफोर्ड सुधार था, है ना, मॉन्टेगू चेम्सफोर्ड सुधार, उसके तहत पहली बार हमारे यहाँ फॉर्मली आप कह सकते हैं डायरकी लाई गई, फॉर्मली, है ना. अब इसके पहले तो कहने वाले बोल देते हैं कि 1784 के जो आपका पिट्स इंडिया एक्ट था उसमें भी डायरकी लाई गई थी, बट वो डायरकी नहीं थी. वो बोर्ड ऑफ कंट्रोल और कोर्ट ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स के नाम पे बोल देते हैं लोग कि डायरकी वाज इंट्रोड्यूस्ड फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम इन 1784 एक्ट, like anyway, diarchy was formally introduced for the first time via means of Government of India Act of 1919. 1919 के भारत शासन अधिनियम के द्वारा पहली बार हमारे यहाँ द्वैध शासन लाया गया था. ये एक बात हुई. ये जो द्वैध शासन लाया गया था हार्दिक, ये प्रोविंशियल लेवल पर लाया गया था. प्रोविंशियल लेवल पे अथॉरिटी किसके पास होती थी? गवर्नर्स के हाथों में होती थी, है ना. और सेंट्रल लेवल पे चूंकि वायसराय हुआ करता था, बट वायसराय को कॉमन पार्लेंस में, सामान्य व्यवहार में लोग गवर्नर जनरल ही बोला करते थे. एनीवे, अगर डायरकी की बात करें तो डायरकी में किया गया था कि जब 1919 में प्रोविंशियल लेवल पे द्वैध शासन था, तो वहां जो गवर्नर की एग्जीक्यूटिव पावर्स थे, जो उसकी प्रशासनिक शक्तियां थी, प्रशासनिक शक्तियां जिन जिन विषयों पर वो अप्लाई करता था, उसे दो हिस्सों में बांट दिया गया, है ना, दो ग्रुप्स में बांट दिया गया. जाहिर सी बात है, कुछ सब्जेक्ट्स होंगे जिन पर गवर्नर एडमिनिस्टर करता होगा, प्रशासन चलाता होगा. प्रशासनिक विषयों को दो खेमों में बांट दिया गया, है ना, दो लिस्टों में बांट दिया गया, और एक को बोला गया रिजर्व लिस्ट और दूसरे को ट्रांसफर्ड लिस्ट, है ना, आरक्षित सूची और हस्तांतरित सूची. रिजर्व लिस्ट के अंदर सारे इंपॉर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट्स को रख दिए गए थे, और ट्रांसफर्ड लिस्ट के अंदर लेस इंपॉर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट्स वर इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इन दैट लिस्ट. और हुआ क्या कि आरक्षित विषयों के ऊपर निर्णय लेने की जो शक्ति थी वो एक विशेष ग्रुप के हाथों में दे दी गई। वो ग्रुप कौन था? वो ब्रिटिश ऑफिशियल्स हुआ करते थे जिनको काउंसलर बोला जाता था। समझ रहे हैं मेरी बात? तो काउंसलर की मदद से निर्णय तो गवर्नर ही लेता था। समझ रहे? जैसे मान लो मैं गवर्नर, मेरे पास 20 सब्जेक्ट्स ऑफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है, ऑन दैट आई कैन एडमिनिस्टर, आई कैन टेक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव डिसीजंस। लेट अस कंसीडर दैट आई हैव डिवाइडेड all these 20 subjects into two different groups, two different list। और क्या किया मैंने कि जितने इंपॉर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट्स थे उसको हमने रिजर्व लिस्ट के अंदर डाल दिया और जो लेस इंपॉर्टेंट थे उनको ट्रांसफर्ड लिस्ट के अंदर डाल दिया, है ना। अब रिजर्व लिस्ट पे जो महत्वपूर्ण विषय है, आम जनता के लिए ज्यादा जरूरी है, उस पर निर्णय अंग्रेजी अधिकारी ले रहे हैं, ब्रिटिश ऑफिशियल्स ले रहे हैं। अब ब्रिटिश ऑफिशियल्स को आम जनता से क्या लेना देना? कॉलोनियल हुकूमत थी। समझ रहे हैं? और जो बेहद बकवास के विषय थे, बेकार टाइप के फालतू विषय थे, उन पर निर्णय लेने का अधिकार किसको दे दिया गया? हमारे यहां प्रोविंशियल असेंबली से आए हुए मंत्रियों को। समझ रहे हैं? अब पता चला कि सिंचाई दे दिया गया प्रोविंशियल मिनिस्टर्स के जिम्मे और कृषि दे दिया गया, सॉरी एग्रीकल्चर दे दिया गया भारतीय मंत्रियों के जिम्मे, प्रांत के मंत्रियों के जिम्मे, प्रोविंशियल मिनिस्टर्स। और इरिगेशन का एक तरह से अधिकार दे दिया गया रिजर्व लिस्ट के अंदर डाल के ब्रिटिश काउंसलर्स को। अब मान लो सिंचाई की सुविधा उपलब्ध नहीं हो पा रही है आम जनता को, तो आम जनता किसकी गर्दन पकड़ेगी? जाहिर सी बात है प्रोविंशियल मिनिस्टर्स की गर्दन पकड़ेगी कि भाई क्या कर रहा है तू मेरा रिप्रेजेंटेटिव है। अब वो बेचारे क्या करें? एग्रीकल्चर तो उनके जिम्मे आ गया, लेकिन इरिगेशन की व्यवस्था या उसके संबंध में निर्णय कौन लेगा? उसके संबंध में निर्णय काउंसलर्स लेंगे जो ब्रिटिश ऑफिशियल्स है। एक तरह से एक अथॉरिटेटिव विंग बन गई और अथॉरिटेटिव विंग के अंदर सारे महत्वपूर्ण सब्जेक्ट चले गए। तो हुआ क्या कि इस व्यवस्था में सबसे ज्यादा फजीहत भारत के नेताओं की हुई, यानी जनता सीधे उन्हें पकड़ती थी कि किस लिए मंत्री बने वो, खेती चौपट हुए जा रही है। और बेचारे क्या करें? अगर मामला ये हो कि खेती सिंचाई की वजह से, इरिगेशन की वजह से चौपट हो रही है, तो इरिगेशन तो इनके बुत्ते की बात है नहीं। तो ये एक तरह से फेल्योर मॉडल रहा डायरकी। बट जैसे ही गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट ऑफ 1935 पास हुआ तो उसमें डायरकी को प्रोविंशियल लेवल से शिफ्ट करके फेडरल लेवल पे कर दिया गया, सेंट्रल लेवल पे कर दिया गया, है ना सर्वेश? नो, इट्स नॉट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल, बट द आयरनी इज he cannot knock the door of Supreme Court of India for the enforcement of such fundamental right. I mean, an outsider or a foreigner cannot knock the door of Supreme Court because the rights under Article 15 is not available to non-citizens. But it does not mean that you can call it constitutional. He can ask for judicial remedy from other judicial platforms like High Court, lower courts, but not Supreme. What do you mean by dispute redressal mechanism and institution? Mechanism is a kind of system, and institution is something which follows such mechanism. Is it a question? ये जो पूछना चाह रहा है पूछ नहीं पा रहा है ना, आप सो करिए। व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय डिस्प्यूट रिड्रेसल मैकेनिज्म एंड इंस्टीट्यूशन? Okay, dispute redressal institutions versus dispute redressal mechanism. Oh, mechanism means simply way outs. Whatever the way outs being followed by, dispute redressal institutions to resolve disputes, that is called mechanism. Suppose lok adalats. Lok adalat. Lok adalat is a kind of dispute redressal institution, and which kind of mechanism being followed by lok adalat to resolve disputes? It simply functions on the line of civil court. It takes the decision on the line of Panchayati Raj institution and alike. Rahul is asking, what is difference between order by law, rule and regulations? What is a statutory body? See, out of your scans, only one part is evident to me, and that is what is statutory body. Statutory body means that type of institution which has been brought into existence with the help of some act, some legislation, some law, is called statutory body. Yes, Saurabh, yes, please ask Saurabh. Saurabh, ask please. Akanksha is also raising her hand. Saurabh, do you have any question? Or I should switch over upon Rahul Sangwan's question? No, he is having no question. How to implement the right to education in private schools? Suppose someone cannot afford fees, then usko school में admission मिलेगा. Is there any guarantee for his or her studies? You can't say there is any guarantee for his or her study. It depends upon, the way this act is to be implemented, or the way this act is to be followed by the institutions. Nitin. Yes. Yes, Nitin. Voluntarily, okay. Voluntarily gives up membership. The escape clause from when disqualified under anti-defection of law. Can't the member of parliament voluntarily gives up his membership from party? Yes, of course. Why not? Yes, they can give up their membership from their party. Voluntarily means on their own willingness. Who is more powerful, judiciary or parliament? I know legislative assembly can make a law on any subject, but still Supreme Court and judiciary review it on the basis of basic structure doctrine. See, on or after April 24, 1973, though this may not be asked in a form of question, it's not a question actually, but still, since you have asked me, it's my moral responsibility to respond. After April 24, 1973, without any hesitation, you can say the judiciary in India is more powerful than any other organ of the government, legislative or executive. So judiciary is powerful. But you should not make such comparison, because Indian Constitution makes the provision for doctrine of separation of power. And the main motive of doctrine of separation of power is to observe a proper balance amongst all the organs of the government, because they all combinedly constitute government. Okay. Few years before, a member of parliament in Rajya Sabha has put a private member bill for the removal of secularism word from preamble, and said that secularism concept is given in fundamental right and it has been added by 42nd. Okay. वो क्या कहेगा? ऐड किया ही गया है. Can removal of secularism from preamble can affect the basic structure of constitution? No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Even though it has been removed from the preamble, it does not mean that it is going to be diluted under preamble. No. In preamble, sorry, in constitution, it is having its strong position in the form of the values of constitution. No one can, eliminate the concept of secularism from Article 27. Even though the term preamble, sorry, the term secularism was not mentioned in preamble before 1976, it did not mean that Indian Constitution was deprived of the value of secularism. No. Even those time, it used to be intact in our Constitution. Yes, Smith. Yes, Smith, ask your question, please. Acha, this is Praveen's question. Can Parliament of India make any implement or abolished in restricted article? Can make Parliament new permanent article, and what is way to make the article? What is way to make the article? What kind of question you are asking? Okay, he may be asking, can Parliament of India add a new article in Indian Constitution or abolish an old article from the Constitution? Yes, it can do so. It can do so. by following the norms given under Article 368, by using its constituent legislative power, the Parliament of India can do so. That would be termed as amendment being done by the Parliament. Yes, Smith asked the question. Yes, it depends upon the consideration being made by the Parliament of India, and all sorts of consideration regarding which UT should be, provided the status of a state, or which state should be provided the or transformed into the form of UTs, like while Jammu and Kashmir was transformed into the form of UT. It depends upon Parliament's discretion. There may be a possibility that in coming years, you may see that Daman and Divi is a separate state. Andaman and Nicobar has acquired the status of statehood. Right now, they have just been given the status of UT just for the sake of having greater concentration in those areas, greater concentration regarding the growth and development of those areas from the side of center directly. जिन क्षेत्रों में सेंटर चाहता है कि हमें उस पर अधिक ध्यान देना चाहिए, उसको यूनियन टेरिटरी के रूप में कंसीडर करता है. Sir, Legislative Assembly Amendment, Article 16, Clause 4, Subclass B for carry forward rule. So SC ने उसे null and void क्यों डिक्लेयर नहीं किया? एससी ने ये कहा कि अगर कैरी फॉरवर्ड को हटा नहीं दोगे, है ना, कैरी, अच्छा ये करो, मैं समझ गया. हाँ, इसके पहले कैरी फॉरवर्ड की वजह से, है ना, जो एससी एसटी का रिजर्वेशन था उसको अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बोल दिया सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने. और देखो, सुप्रीम कोर्ट तो केवल आपको सजेस्ट करेगा ना कि हाँ ऐसा है, ऐसा लॉ है, तो ये अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल है. अगर मान लो पार्लियामेंट ने उसकी रिमेडी नहीं निकाली, सपोज the 81st Constitutional Amendment Act, could have not been made by the Parliament, and accordingly, let us consider that Article 16, Class 4, Subclass B could have not been introduced under the Constitution. Then it's obvious that the carry forward norm being followed by the state could have been declared unconstitutional or could have been scrapped by the Supreme Court. But meanwhile, the Parliament of India has carried out Constitutional Amendment Act, inserted a particular constitutional provision, and in that particular constitutional provision, the reference was made that even the carry forward rule be applied for the sake of promotion concerning SCs and ST people in public employment, that would not be considered as unconstitutional. तो अब ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट कैसे फैक्ट पे जांच करेगा ना, और देख लिया कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में 16(4)B में लिख दिया गया है कि कैरी फॉरवर्ड जायज है, तो दैट्स इट. Because law making is basically the sole authority of legislation. Good afternoon, Abdul. You explained so well in the class that up to now I do not have any doubt. Thank you so much. Please join Telegram so that we can. Oh my God, I just wrote to ask Abdul. अभी तो आई एम सॉरी, क्योंकि आपको बताऊं पर डे में 11 से 12 घंटे की क्लासेस ले रहा हूं और नॉन स्टॉप चल रहा है ये. अगले आप मान के चलो अप्रैल तक ऐसे ही रहेगा. तो देखता हूं. दिक्कत ये है कि ज्वाइन कर लूंगा और आपके क्वेश्चंस को एंटरटेन नहीं करूंगा तो बड़ा अजीब लगता है ना. आप भी सोचते हैं मैंने सर से क्वेरी कर दिया और ये इररिस्पॉन्सिव बने हुए हैं, तो थोड़ा अजीब सा लगता है. ओके, आई विल लुक इनटू दैट. See a news on any kind of judgment from SC or any political statement. How should I analyze and mark important points out of it? Okay. First of all, just try not to hit upon the political statements. Yeah, they are simply the stupid ones. Just keep yourself away from all kind of political statements which are published in newspapers. Yes, if any Supreme Court's judgment, uh, is given in newspaper or article, undoubtedly, I'm suggesting you to refer that and try to connect it with whatever the issues you have been going through in your syllabus concerning Indian polity and constitution. Saurabh ji is asking, sir, my question not taken yet. I am so sorry, Saurabh. Where is your question? Raj Kumar is asking, sir, please talk about polity part of prelims and mains examination to get confidence. बड़ा सिंपल है राजकुमार, आपको बताऊं, इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एट वर्क, one NCERT from 11th standard, democracy in India, issues and challenges, one more NCERT from 12th standard. आप इन दो NCERT को कुछ इस तरीके से तैयार करो कि at the end of every chapter, whatever the exercises are given, whatever the questions are given, if you are finding yourself, capable enough or efficient enough to address those questions following the chapter, it means you are going on right track for mains point of view. Even I'm saying for preliminary as well. अगर 11-12 की एनसीईआरटी के क्वेश्चंस को आपने राइट कर लिया और साथ में करंट पॉलिटिकल डेवलपमेंट, गवर्नेंस रिलेटेड इश्यूज को अगर पढ़ते चल रहे हैं, तो प्री हो या मेंस हो, कम से कम इस सेगमेंट में कोई दिक्कत नहीं आएगी. एंड आई बेट श्योर, जो आपको मैं मेंस के अभी जो फाउंडेशन कोर्स में पढ़ा रहा हूं और साथ में साइमल्टेनियसली जो आपको डिक्टेशन देता हूं, अगर ईमानदारी से उस डिक्टेशन को फॉलो करेंगे तो इतना तो तय है कि कंसेप्चुअल लाइन पे कोई भी क्वेश्चन, पॉलिटी का क्वेश्चन आपको परेशान नहीं कर पाएगा. Even you can realize it. You may be realizing. Yes, Saurabh, please open your mic, open your sound system, and ask the question directly to me. Ask the question, please. Because it is not visible in chat box, that's why. Please ask. हाँ, पूछिए सौरभ, पूछिए. Technical. No, please give him some time.
सौरभ, आपका आवाज नहीं आ रहा है.
हाँ, सौरभ is about to speak something. Yes, please tell us, Saurabh. कहाँ दिक्कत आ रही है?
सौरभ, आपका माइक बंद है, शायद म्यूट पे है आपका माइक. सौरभ कुमार, आपका माइक शायद म्यूट पे है.
Saurabh, are you getting us? Am I audible?
Hello, sir.
Yes. Hi, Saurabh. Hi, please ask.
Yes, sir. Confederation and federalism. इस तीनों टर्म को सर सेपरेट कैसे करेंगे?
अच्छा. Okay. See, listen me carefully.
Yes, sir.
See, federalism is a kind of democratic political system. Okay. ये जो फेडरलिज्म है, देखो आपको बताऊं, वर्ल्ड वाइड लेवल पर there are 6 different kinds of democratic political system. Can I use this whiteboard?
Yes.
Yes. Please look. See, On worldwide level, there are 6 different kinds of political systems. Okay. विश्व में कुल 6 अलग अलग प्रकार की राजनीतिक प्रणालियां पाई जाती हैं, 6 different kinds of political system. और इसको हम लोग all these 6 different kinds of political system can be shown into the form of 2 different chunks, 2 different groups. इसको हम 2 क्लासेस में बांट सकते हैं और ये क्लास होता है 3+3. 3+3 means 3 different kinds of democratic political systems are based on the nature of polity of that country. The nature of polity of the country concerned. Okay. The nature of polity of the country concerned. Fine. And remaining 3 other different kinds of political system, I mean democratic political systems, they are formed out of the different kinds of governments. The kinds of government. They all are the democratic political system. 3 democratic political systems are formed out of the nature of polity existing in the countries, and other 3 different kinds of democratic political systems are formed as per the basis of the kind of government found there. Okay, on the basis of nature of polity, look, 3 different democratic political systems are there. One, federal democratic political system, other, unitary democratic political system, and third one is quasi-federal democratic political system. Okay, see, rest 3 or next 3 different kinds of democratic political systems are formed out of the nature of governments. One is called parliamentary form of government. Parliamentary, other one is presidential, and third one is semi-presidential. तो अगर किसी देश में आपको पार्लियामेंट्री फॉर्म ऑफ गवर्नमेंट दिखे, प्रेसिडेंशियल दिखे, सेमी प्रेसिडेंशियल दिखे, या फिर यूनिटरी नेचर ऑफ पॉलिटी दिख जाए, फेडरल नेचर ऑफ पॉलिटी, क्वासी फेडरल नेचर ऑफ पॉलिटी, दे ऑल आर बेसिकली द काइंड ऑफ डेमोक्रेटिक पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम. पूरे वर्ल्ड वाइड लेवल पे डेमोक्रेटिक पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम इसके अतिरिक्त कुछ नहीं है. यही 6 है, ध्यान रखिएगा, है ना. और चूंकि आपके सिलेबस का हिस्सा नहीं है नॉन डेमोक्रेटिक पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम, इसलिए मैं उसको डिस्कस नहीं किया था, है ना. लाइक एब्सोल्यूटिज्म, टोटलिटेरियनिज्म, डिक्टेटरशिप, etc., etc. There is no need to have a glimpse upon those non-democratic political system. India is a democracy, so our concern is by and large related to democratic political system only. देखो, now look into federal political system. See, federal political system is undoubtedly a kind of democratic political system, and this system is largely known for observing the concept of division of power. It is known for observing decentralization in governance. Federalism exists for observing decentralization in administration. And how to observe decentralization in governance and administration? By ensuring the division of power between central authority and state authority. State authority means the authorities related to something like participating units. Federalism क्या होता है कि जो सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी होगी, ये सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी अपनी यूनिट्स के साथ, जिसको हम लोग पॉपुलरली स्टेट्स बोलते हैं, सेंटर और स्टेट्स के बीच रिलेशनशिप बनेगा. और ये जो रिलेशनशिप होगा वो किस पे आधारित होगा? डिवीजन ऑफ पावर पे आधारित होगा. दो अदर एलिमेंट्स आल्सो प्ले some crucial roles, like the concept of supremacy of constitution. Written constitution needs to be there, you know. Some of the provisions or almost all the provisions of the constitution must be rigid ones, and finally authority of court must also be there. Anyway, but जो मेन है वो डिवीजन ऑफ पावर है. तो अगर किसी पॉलिटिकल सिस्टम में डिवीजन ऑफ पावर नहीं होगा तो तय मानिए डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन नहीं आएगा, और जहां डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन नहीं होगा वहां फेडरलिज्म नहीं होगी. ओके, तो जब भी बात फेडरलिज्म की हो तो पहली बात आपके दिमाग में बैठनी चाहिए वो ये है कि फेडरलिज्म इज ऑल अबाउट हाउ टू ऑब्जर्व डिवीजन ऑफ पावर so that decentralization can be observed in the domain of country's governance, country's administration. तो देश के शासन प्रशासन में विकेंद्रीकरण लाई जा सके, उसके लिए फेडरलिज्म अपनाया जाता है। अब ये कंट्री टू कंट्री वेरी करता है कौन कंट्री किस तरह के फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर को अपना रही है, बिकॉज if you further classify federalism into different classes, you may obtain 3 subclasses of federalism. One is called union class of federalism, other one is called federation, and third one is called confederation. India is having union kind of federalism. Under union kind of federalism, the central authority is provided with greater power as comparison to participating units. See, the concept of division of power would be available in all the 3 different forms of federal structure. No matter whether you are talking about union type federal structure or federation or confederation, everywhere you will find the concept of division of power, because they all are finally based upon the concept of how to absorb decentralization. So for the sake of decentralization, division of power is a must type criteria. Now the question is how this division of power is to be followed. If the division of power is followed in a manner like center be provided greater power, states be provided less power, that is an indicative of union type federal structure. Second thing, if the central authority and participating units both are being provided equal powers, that is an indicative of federation to exist, federation. And it's the case with United States of America. अमेरिका में क्या होता है, सेंटर स्टेट दोनों को बाय एंड लार्ज इक्विटेबल पावर होता है ना. And what happens to confederation? Under confederation, even units are more powerful than center. Participating units are more powerful than center. Means here states enjoy greater power and central authority enjoy less power. One more thing, in union and confederation, the central authority and state authorities, their relationship is not based upon any kind of legal agreement between the two. यहां पर सेंटर और स्टेट के बीच कोई वैधानिक समझौता नहीं होता. यूनियन में क्या होगा कि सेंटर को इतना पावरफुल बना दिया जाता है और स्टेट्स को इतना कमजोर बना दिया जाता है कि स्टेट चाह के भी सेंटर से बगावत नहीं कर सकता. तो कानून के माध्यम से उसे, कानूनी समझौते के माध्यम से उसे जोड़ने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. उसे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इतना कमजोर बना देता है कि वो अपने सर्वाइवल के लिए सेंटर पे डिपेंड रहेगा ही रहेगा. इसलिए यूनियन में even in the absence of a kind of legal agreement between center and state cannot secede themselves from the center. State cannot disintegrate the federalism, है ना. और फेडरेशन में क्या होता है, सेंटर स्टेट दोनों बराबर की शक्तियां रखते हैं. बावजूद इसके डिसइंटीग्रेशन इसके नहीं होता है कि द रिलेशनशिप फाउंड बिटवीन सेंटर एंड स्टेट्स इन फेडरेशन दैट इज डिपेंडेंट अपॉन सम काइंड ऑफ लीगल एग्रीमेंट, है ना. कॉन्फेडरेशन में क्या है, स्टेट्स ज्यादा मजबूत है, सेंटर कमजोर है, पहली वीकनेस. दूसरी, दोनों के बीच कोई लीगल एग्रीमेंट नहीं होता. तो कॉन्फेडरल यूनिट्स क्या करती हैं, जैसे उनका स्वार्थ सिद्ध हो जाएगा सेंटर को लात मार के निकल लेते हैं. क्लियर ना सौरभ?
यस सर. सर एक चीज और सर, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, ये दोनों टर्म का सर क्या एक्चुअल मीनिंग होता है?
Constitutionalism simply corroborates towards the values of constitution. Okay, values of constitution. Constitution is merely the supreme law of the country. It's a legal document. Constitution is a legally sanctified document, and in this particular document, all the norms are given, all the principles are given. Based on that, the country's governance and administration are run. That's it. This is what constitution is. But when it comes to constitutionalism, constitutionalism reflects towards the values inherent in a constitution. And how to recognize the values given in a constitution? By having a look into different kinds of provisions. Suppose a constitution makes the provision for right to freedom of speech and expression. So right to freedom of speech and expression is one of the values of a constitution. One of the values of a constitution, one of the factors of constitutionalism. Suppose the constitution makes the provision for social justice to exist. Suppose the constitution makes the provision for free and independent judicial system to exist. All these are referred to as, the factors of constitutionalism. Constitutionalism is basically an abstract concept. It is a larger set comprising of different ingredients. Like if a constitution contains the provisions related to gender justice, social justice, free and fair judicial system, you can say neutral bureaucratic system, they all are the factors and they combinedly constitute constitutionalism. And remember, constitutionalism is the phenomena of democratic constitutions only. In non-democratic constitution, you cannot trace the degree of constitutionalism. आप चीन के संविधान में जाकर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनलिज्म ढूंढेंगे तो इसे कहेंगे अंधेरे में तीर चलाना. ठीक है.
Got it, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, most welcome. हाँ, sir, can you please explain Indian brand of secularism like PM of India doing Bhumi Puja? I have explained this topic. Have you not been provided with that lecture, the explanation of Article 25 to 28? राहुल, डिस्कस कर दिया हूं, फिर भी मैं आपको बता देता हूं, अभी लेक्चर गया नहीं है आप लोगों में, ये सारा इशू मैं डिस्कस किया हूं. देखो, the secularism in Indian Constitution, remember, it presupposes the value of tolerance. It presupposes the concept of tolerance. तो हमारे यहां जो सेकुलरिज्म है ये टॉलरेंस की बुनियाद पे चलता है. टॉलरेंस समझ रहे हो? सहनशीलता. और स्टेट रिलीजन से अपने को अलूफ नहीं करता, स्टेट रिलीजन से खुद को कनेक्ट रखता है. वो अलग बात है कि रिलीजियस प्रिंसिपल्स को गवर्निंग प्रिंसिपल के रूप में नहीं बनाएगा, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव प्रिंसिपल के रूप में नहीं बनाएगा, बट इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि स्टेट रिलीजन को तरजीह ही नहीं देगा. आपने देखा है, आप कलेक्टर बन जाओगे और अपने कलेक्ट्रेट में चाहो तो बड़ा सा टीका लगा के बैठ सकते हो, है ना, दाढ़ी बढ़ा के बड़ी टोपी लगा के जा सकते हो. नोबडी इज गोइंग टू प्रिवेंट यू डूइंग सो. तो ऐसा क्यों है? आप देखें कई दफा गवर्नमेंट प्रीमाइसेस में मंदिर बने होते हैं, मॉस्क बने होते हैं, चर्च बने होते हैं. क्यों? बिकॉज Indian state presupposes the degree of tolerance when it comes to the secular framework of a constitution. Hopefully you have got my point. ये डिस्कस कर चुका हूं. स्क्रॉल above. You missed a question after Rahul. अच्छा, ये कुछ लिख रहे हैं, हमने क्वेश्चन मिस कर दिया. अच्छा, कोई नहीं, फिर आएंगे डाउट सेशन में. राहुल, डोंट वरी. हाँ, स्मिथ इज व्हाट आर द इंपॉर्टेंट डिफरेंस वी मस्ट नॉट. रोल ऑफ गवर्नर चेंजेस इन यूटी हैविंग लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली. सी, role of governor cannot be taken separately from the role to be played by the cabinet, because what is the principal role to be played by governors of state? क्या इनकी मुख्य भूमिका होती है? ये बेसिकली एजेंट होते हैं. दे आर मियरली द एजेंट ऑफ यूनियन काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स इन स्टेट, है ना. तो वास्तव में इनका कोई रोल नहीं होता. Okay. What are the important difference we must not ignore about 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act? Yes. See, when it comes to 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, though it is termed as mini constitution, so many constitutional provisions got inducted under Indian Constitution. But if you try to be specific regarding this constitutional amendment, you need to focus upon three philosophical aspects of our constitution. Don't you think by means of 42nd, certain developments were made in preamble to the Constitution of India? Socialist behavior of state, secular fabric of state, and finally integrity under the aspiration section. So all sorts of issues related to secular fabric, all sorts of issues related to socialistic pattern of our country, and the issues concerning unity and integrity of nation, they all must be taken note of while dictating or while having a look into 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Is India prepared for direct democracy? No, not at all, never. अरे जहां डायरेक्ट हुआ करती थी वहां भी इनडायरेक्ट हो गया. कैसी बात कर रहे हो? डायरेक्ट वाले भी इनडायरेक्ट में बनते जा रहे हैं. इतनी भारी भरकम आबादी के साथ हम डायरेक्ट डेमोक्रेसी कैसे हो सकते हैं? Being a representative democracy is the only way out for India. Difference between secularism and videos and or test. Please take videos and a test sufficient for UPSC pre. Not only for UPSC pre, remember, it is equitably more than sufficient for your written examination as well. Sir, difference between secularism and Secularization. Secularization means the ways which are followed to make people secular, to remain secular, is called secularization. Polity section. Yes, I am taking polity section, Saurabh. I am taking polity section. I have completed my portion till part 4A of Constitution, and I am very much excited to do recordings for coming, preliminary crash course batch. From part 5th onwards, Mr. Irshad sir would have been teaching you, and till 4th A, I mean fundamental duties. I have recorded almost all the lectures, and that would be provided to you according to schedule. Okay. Is it okay, guys? Do we really need Subhash Kashyap book after your lecture? I don't think so, but for the sake of your satisfaction, you may refer that, but I don't think so. Lecture plus अगर NCERT ही केवल पढ़ते हो ना, that is more than sufficient. फर्जी के भारी भरकम किताबों के चक्कर में मत पड़िए. पॉलिटी के अलावा भी दूसरे सब्जेक्ट्स हैं. आप केवल NCERT को बेस बुक बनाइए, 2 बुक को. मैंने बोला इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एट वर्क एंड डेमोक्रेसी इन इंडिया इश्यूज एंड चैलेंजेस. इसके अलावा जो पॉलिटी में हम लोग कर रहे हैं क्लास के अंदर, इट विल बी मोर देन सफिशिएंट. यस राहुल, प्लीज आस्क.
हेलो सर.
हाँ, यस प्लीज.
हाँ सर, आपने बताया कि जैसे कि हम जो फेडरल टाइप स्ट्रक्चर, इंडिया जो है वो यूनियन टाइप ऑफ फेडरेशन है, मतलब ठीक है, फेडरेशन ऑफ द स्टेट्स हो गया, यूनियन ऑफ द स्टेट्स, सॉरी,
यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट्स. यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट्स मींस अ काइंड ऑफ फेडरेशन ऑफ स्टेट्स.
हाँ जी. तो सर आपने ये बोला कि हम उनको अलग नहीं कर सकते, मतलब कि जैसे आपने बोला कि एक ही सिक्के के 2 पहलू, यूनिटरी एंड द फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर. हम इंडिया को क्वासी फेडरल नहीं बोल सकते.
हाँ, क्वासी फेडरल नहीं बोलेंगे. इसलिए मैं एग्जांपल भी दिया था कि देखो, क्वासी फेडरल में भी आप यूनिटरी फीचर्स और फेडरल फीचर्स पाएंगे. यूनियन टाइप फेडरलिज्म में भी ये दोनों फीचर्स होंगे, बट यूनियन टाइप फेडरलिज्म में ये दोनों फीचर्स एक दूसरे से कनेक्टेड होंगे, और क्वासी फेडरलिज्म में ये दोनों एक दूसरे से कनेक्टेड नहीं होंगे. ये अलग अलग पर्पस के लिए, जैसे सेंट्रलाइजेशन को ऑब्जर्व करने के लिए यूनिटरी प्रोविजंस इस्तेमाल होंगे, फेडरलिज्म को ऑब्जर्व करने के लिए, आई मीन डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन को ऑब्जर्व करने के लिए फेडरल फीचर्स इस्तेमाल होंगे. इंडिया में ऐसा नहीं है. इंडिया में यूनिटरी फीचर्स और फेडरल फीचर्स इतने कनेक्टेड हैं कि आपको बताऊं, द सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऑफ इंडिया इन ड्यू कोर्स ऑफ हैविंग अ हियरिंग अपॉन केशवानंद भारती वर्सेस स्टेट ऑफ केरला केस 1973, कोर्ट ने साफ साफ पॉइंट किया कि मान लो कि इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ह्यूमन बॉडी है, और ह्यूमन बॉडी की आत्मा इसके यूनिटरी फीचर्स हैं, और जो इसके बॉडी ऑर्गन्स हैं ये इसके फेडरल फीचर्स हैं. समझ रहे हैं मेरी बात? तो इसीलिए कई दफा तमाम जुडिशियल टेक्स्ट बुक्स में आपको बताऊं, दोज टेक्स्ट बुक्स विच आर रिटन फॉर द सेक ऑफ जुडिशियल सर्विसेज एग्जामिनेशन, कई जगहों पर तो ये लिख दिया गया है कि इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इज अ यूनिटरी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, बट दैट इज नॉट करेक्ट. ऐसा क्यों कहा जाता है? क्योंकि भारतीय संविधान की जो आत्मा है वो इसके एकात्मक पक्ष है. यानी इतना तय हो गया कि सेंटर के पास हमेशा ग्रेटर पावर रहेगा. अब जरा सोचो, बॉडी में आत्मा और बॉडी ऑर्गन्स का क्या रिलेशन है? आत्मा निकल गई, मर जाएंगे. आत्मा को छोड़ दो, आत्मा के नाम पे सारे बॉडी ऑर्गन्स को चॉप ऑफ कर दो, क्या बचेगा? कुछ नहीं बचेगा. तो दोनों का एक सामंजस्य होना चाहिए. ये कोर्ट का कहना है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट का, कि ये ह्यूमन बॉडी है. और अगर आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली के अंदर जो संवाद था बाबा साहब अंबेडकर का अन्य मेंबरानों के साथ, तो उस समय लोगों ने कहा था कि ये जो आप यूनियन टाइप फेडरलिज्म पे अड़े हुए हैं, कुछ मजा नहीं आएगा, अमेरिका के मॉडल पे आप कर लो. इन्होंने कहा कि परेशान मत हो, अमेरिकी मॉडल पे हमें फेडरलिज्म अपनाने की आवश्यकता नहीं है ना, क्योंकि कहा जाता है ना, जैसी देवी वैसी पूजा. अब पता चला कि अमेरिकी मॉडल पे हम फेडरलिज्म बना दे, सेंटर के साथ साथ स्टेट्स को बराबर की शक्तियां दे दे और लीगल एग्रीमेंट भी कर लें, तो आपको लगता है कि सेंटर को कोई भी काम यहाँ स्टेट्स करने देंगे? अभी स्टेट्स यूनियन टाइप फेडरलिज्म में बेहद कमजोर स्थिति में होता है, तो भी आप देखिए राज्य केंद्र के फैसलों पर कैसे अड़ जाते हैं. हैव अ लुक इनटू द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन नरेंद्र मोदी एंड ममता दीदी. आपको लगता है कि अगर राज्यों को भी सेंटर के बराबर शक्तियां होती तो ममता दीदी क्या नरेंद्र मोदी या अमित शाह को बंगाल में घुसने देती? तो डॉक्टर बी आर अम्बेडकर साहब को यह सब मालूम था कि हम हिंदुस्तानी कैसे हैं. वे कहे कि इसके लिए सबसे बढ़िया है यूनियन टाइप फेडरलिज्म रखो, तभी जाकर देश की यूनिटी इंटेग्रिटी मेंटेन रहेगी. सर आप हिंदी में क्रैश कोर्स लेंगे या इंग्लिश में? इंग्लिश मीडियम में क्रैश कोर्स होगा तो इंग्लिश में ही लूंगा, है ना। प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन सॉल्यूशन का क्लास होगा क्या? ऑफ कोर्स होगा स्वराज, ऑफ कोर्स होगा। Why directive principles of state policy is part of our constitution and what is the role of, ये तो हम पढ़ाएंगे आपको सप्तेश, ये पढ़ाए हैं, है ना। और क्यों पार्ट है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का? पार्ट इसलिए है ना कि अगर आपको अधिकार दे दिया जाए और कर्तव्य ना दिया जाए तो अधिकार पगलिया जाएगा। तो अधिकार को पागल होने से बचाना हो तो कर्तव्य निर्धारित कर दो। बैलेंस, बैलेंस। इज इट ओके टू ऑल ऑफ यू? ओके देन